Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast, a podcast carefully designed to introduce a wide range of very talented and highly skilled professionals ready to share their knowledge and advice with you. Please welcome the host of I Got a Guy podcast, Michael Drelichars. Hello and welcome to I Got a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Drelichars. Thank you so much for joining us yet again. We appreciate all the feedback and the responses that we've received, and frankly, a lot of our guests have appreciated you all as listeners reaching out to them for their services. So that's always a something that is really hit to the point of why I started this podcast in the first place, was to help small businesses grow. I believe that small businesses are the foundation of our economy, and we need to do all we can to help small businesses in all different areas and different fields succeed. So it's really it's a passion of mine, and as an owner of a small business, I can relate one-on-one on a daily basis to that aspect. As you know, if those of you that have been with us for a while, you know that this show was really born out of a book called The Go-Giver. Bob Burg wrote this book, and if you haven't had a chance to read the book, I really highly encourage you to do so. It's a great book about giving to gain referrals and to grow your business. And that book inspired me to actually start this show quite some time ago. So I like to reference that in every one of my episodes because it's an important component. In that book, Bob lists out 5 laws of stratospheric success. And as you know, I do usually highlight one of those that marries up with our guest very well. So this week, the law of stratospheric success we're going to touch on is the law of value, and is defined as give more in value than you receive in payment. Give more in value than you receive in payment. And I think as you get to know our guest this week, you're going to realize how much value she provides to small businesses, and it far exceeds any compensation she might receive for it, but she's doing it because it's the right thing to do. So, anyway, if you have not seen our past episodes, I encourage you to go to igotaguypodcast.com. You'll see a list of all of our past episodes. Feel free to listen to them on any of your audio platforms. You can also watch the episode on Rumble and on YouTube. So feel free to either watch or listen to our podcasts. Encourage you to share them, subscribe to the channel. When we do add in new episodes, you'll be notified. We have had a slowdown in the production of our episodes, so we're not doing as many as we were doing for a while, and I try to get back to a more steady stream, and I'll continue to work in that direction so you all get good information. But let's get into meeting our guest this week. Anbern Guarrine, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
Guarrine.
Guarrine, yes. Anbern is a new friend. I met her recently, but I really appreciated and resonated with her story and what she does to help small businesses. So I encouraged her to come on and be a guest on our show this week. So, Anbern, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Excited.
Absolutely. And I see you're out in the fresh air out there in the outdoors. That's beautiful. It's a great backdrop for us. Um, Amber, tell us a little about your background first, and then about your company.
Yes. So, I will start with when I started my first business. Um, I created a team building company with some friends from college. We were psychology undergraduates, and we realized that we like working with groups and we like doing team buildings and leadership. And so we formed a company, and we had some clients, uh, both corporate and government. But somewhere along the line, I felt like I needed a little bit more significant. I'm looking for a little more significance. Um, I mean, doing leadership work for corporate is great work. You're helping leaders become, better at what they're doing. But I felt like I was looking for something more long term, more lasting, and that's how I found family business consulting. Um, what I do with family businesses is very similar to what I do with teams and doing leadership programs, but I feel like there's a little bit better, more longer lasting impact. So what I do is I help families craft governance structures to keep the business out of the family dinner table and to keep the family dynamics out of the business boardroom. And so kind of helping the families navigate those two different worlds.
Okay, that's great. And that is a really important area. Generally, are you working with first generation businesses or multi-generational businesses?
So I've worked with both. I've worked with the founding generation transitioning into the second generation. And I've also worked with second, third generation transitioning into the next generation. Um, so yeah, I've worked with different kinds of, is it siblings? Is it cousins? I've worked with them. Yeah.
So the one key component there is family.
Yes.
So you don't
Yes.
work with just any small business, but you focus solely on a family business.
Yes. So I work with all kinds of groups, but my passion is really working with families that have those ties that endure, more than just the business. Uh, yeah, because there's a lot to be said about having all the intricacies and the emotions of a family on and layered on top of all of the business, the messiness of running a business. So if you put those two worlds together, that's very interesting.
Yeah, yes, that sounds interesting. I I know firsthand it can be very complicated
Yes.
and very stressful and much different than a whether it be small or medium-sized business that is not family related. The you could quit if you're in a non-family business, you can quit your job and get a job somewhere else, and you still have your family just all intact. When it's a family business, if you were to quit that family business, you still have that same family. So it could be very it could be dicey and very
Yes.
complicated. So
Yes.
you come in and let's peel back the layers of the onion a little bit on this. So a business owner, maybe it's a founder, says, "Gee, I'm approaching retirement age. I want to hand this business off to my sons, my daughters, my nephews, what have you, my family, but I don't know how to do that." Is that
Mhm.
where you come in and you help them kind of get their arms around that aspect, or do you come in to handle a specific issue?
So I come in right at that transition stage because that's probably when they would start looking for, we need somebody outside to help us. Um, but basically, what I do is I help families have conversations that are a little bit difficult to have by themselves. For example, if you're thinking of passing the reins on to the next generation, you have to talk about, okay, what qualifications are we looking for? And are we going to have, for example, just basic business processes that may be tricky if you're implementing it towards your son, your daughter, your cousin, your aunts and uncles, right? So for example, things like performance reviews. How do
Mhm.
you do that with family members? What happens if the performance review shows that they're not performing up to par? What's the next step? So we want to have these conversations before people are already in the situation, because then you don't have to deal with the emotions. You just have to deal with okay, this is the situation. How can we problem solve this? And then you're using a different part of the brain and you're a little more creative and you're a little more detached. And so you can be more objective.
So I can see where your psychology background comes into play very well here, because you I would imagine you're not telling this business owner how to do it. You're asking questions so that they figure it out on their own, but you're leading them down a path where they can understand um, how critical a particular component is, like performance reviews or financial background or education or work ethic, etc.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Yes. And I like that you picked up on that because I don't. I don't just come in and say, this is the solution. I
Hmm.
work with the families to come up with their own solution because they know their situation so much better than I do.
Of
And
course.
I'm just there to kind of give them the mirror and say, hey, this is what it is. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. And I can see it being complicated if you have, you know, maybe three daughters or three sons that, or three children in general, doesn't matter male or female. But if you have three children that all want to be in the business, how do you select a leader and may not necessarily be the oldest? There's more
Yes,
qualifications than just age.
yes,
So you
yes,
help them explore those fundamentals essentially.
yes, yes. So, what I really like about these conversations is I like taking the family to look at what their visions are. What is their vision? What is their goal for the family and
Sure.
for the business? And then when you have those goals, you have kind of like a guide towards, okay, what's the best way that we can serve these goals? What are the best ways that we can take? And then it becomes clear as to who or what are the qualifications that we need for a leader to take us to this next level.
Do you ever have situations where it remains a family business, but you pick somebody else to do the leading of the business, maybe an outsider, but still
Yes,
family owned?
yes, yes. And sometimes that would make better sense for the family. Say the next generation is not yet, age appropriate or they're not yet ripe for the leadership role. And so they would have a non-family member be the leader of the business. And they're still owning the business, but that's a solution that makes sense for them at that time. And so families would do that.
Okay. So then if we fast forward, 5 years or 10 years, the transition from the founder to the second generation has happened.
Mhm.
And maybe it's like I said, 5 years down the road, and the new leadership, maybe they want to make a change, or they haven't realized the growth that was anticipated when they made this transition. Can you help in that regard as well to kind of go back and figure out maybe what has happened and how they can get back on track?
It's not me personally, because there's a limit to what I can do with the families. Do they need somebody that can help them with strategic planning? Do they need somebody that can help them with implementation? Or maybe the market has changed, and so maybe they need to talk with somebody who has a better grasp of what has the market been doing and what are the new tools that have come up to help us in this industry. So what I do is when I when I work with a family, I give them the tools so that they feel empowered to make those decisions for themselves and to even see the guideposts. Oh, you know what? We set for ourselves these metrics. We said if we don't meet them, we said we were going to do plan XYZ. So I kind of give the family access to their own tools and
Mhm.
empowerment to actually reach for those tools. And if they do need guidance, they can come and call and say, hey, do you know a guy that does XYZ?
Right, right, exactly, exactly. Okay, well, good. So I can really see where you add so much value. I've spoken to so many. I work primarily with small businesses. I like working with small businesses. I like working with the owners directly, and our GPS tracking, fits whether you're a large corporation or a small company. And so I tend to just focus on the smaller companies, like I said, because I like working with the owners. And I see so many of them, they might be in their early to mid 70s and still trying to figure out how do they exit.
Yes,
And it's not an easy task. And now in some cases, you may not have offspring with which to transition the business to, and so you're best served to either probably sell the business to an outsider. And you're saying that you don't work in that area, correct? You would refer that to somebody else?
I would. So my work is to sit the family down and have a conversation. And so if the family wants to go down that route, I can facilitate the conversation. And then you figure out, oh, do we need somebody who is a mergers and acquisition expert? Do we talk about a headhunter? Is there somebody that can help us with that? So, so my work is primarily having the conversations. If the family wants, we can create a family constitution for them, or create a family council, or start the process of creating an independent board for the business. But if they need more than that, then my role is to connect them with the other professionals that focus on those.
Sure. Okay. That makes a lot of sense because I think it does start with the business owner understanding what they really want for their business. And if in fact the right answer is this needs to go outside the family and be sold to either another company or an individual that wants to run the business, that really is a family decision. So you really do help
Yes,
facilitate that and make sure that everyone's on the same page and that there's no um, incorrect expectations, which can easily happen.
right. And I'd also like to say that sometimes the families would say, you know what, we want to keep owning the business, but we want to hire a non-family professional to run it as a somebody who is in charge of the operations, and that's an option too. And so again, the task that I have is to just give the family the space to have those conversations so that they can find the right solutions for them.
Yeah. Okay. And I can also so in those cases, the founder might still stay as like in a small company, could still call him the chairman, where he or
Yeah,
she has the ultimate authority, but the day-to-day operations is farmed out to somebody else, and it may or may not be a family member,
correct.
but you help them do that. Okay, well, that is remarkable. How long have you been doing this?
So I've been doing this for at least 15 years now.
Wow,
I started when I was still in the Philippines, and then I met my husband. I moved to Chicago, and I just kept doing it.
that's awesome. And do you typically work with one business at a time, or do you juggle multiple businesses like every week, every month?
That's a very good question. I do have a growing family, so I am also in the situation of being a family that is in business. And at this stage in our lives right now, I cannot work with multiple businesses. I just work with one project at a time.
Sure.
And that's because I want to protect my time with my family, and I want to make sure that my children are also able to have some time with me. And so,
Sure.
yeah,
Sure.
um, yeah,
Yeah, well, and frankly, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's so when you are working with a business, you can devote all your business attention to that one business, and they end up benefiting the most out of that.
yeah.
That's great. Um, how long does it take you to go through this process? Is this several weeks? Is it months? Does it last for a longer time than that?
That's a very good question. So it would depend on what the family wants. So if the family just wants me to facilitate a meeting, then that could be just a 1 day thing. But if the family would like to help me craft their constitution, then that could be from 3 months to 6 months, just depending on how many conversations do we want to have, how many members of the family are there, and do our schedules even align so that we can all be in the same space and have those important conversations.
Sure, sure. Now, do you also meet with each family member individually? I would
I
imagine you
do.
probably get more details and more candid feedback when you're one-on-one than when you have a group of six family members sitting in a room.
That's Yes, you're right on. I do have conversations with each family member to make sure that I understand what their individual goals are, and what are their dreams, and what are their hopes, and what are their concerns. because you're right. When you are one to one with a person, the dynamics is very different and the conversation is very different than having five or six people all in the room together. So yes, I
Right.
do have conversations individually.
Yeah, I can imagine that, and I would imagine at some point, old stories come up, and so there might be some baggage here and there that could get in the way.
Yes, and I make it a point that we have space for that because uh, skeletons in the closet that are not talked about become problematic down the road. So
Yeah,
we, I do want to have space for looking at, the highs and the lows that the families have had, but then at the end of the day, we look at all the experiences that the families had, both positive and negative, and we look at what are the strengths that are coming out for the family? What are the learnings that we've had that we could take away from those situations? And then that will help us trace or plan out the future for the family.
yeah, yeah. I could really see this that action of dissecting their needs, their desires, their issues, their challenges, their concerns, is very therapeutic for the family overall, and beneficial to the overall health of the family. I can see
It
that.
is, and I have, yeah, and I haven't talked about the tool that I use yet when I'm working with the families. So sometimes I come out and imagine you're the family owners and you walk into the room and taped outside the room are balloons. And you open the door and you see beach balls, rubber ducks, rubber chickens. Because my approach is I use play as a tool to surface all the conversation. So we're not just sitting down having only boring talk. Well, I mean, we're having serious conversations, but we're also having serious fun as we're having those serious conversations.
Interesting. Okay, that's fascinating. I would not have expected that. I
No,
I can envision just a very serious, frank conversation around a table in a conference room, and yeah, I think making it fun probably lets people relax a little bit, and you probably get some more genuine responses to questions when they're relaxed a little bit.
yes, yes. And laughter, we know laughter lowers our stress levels.
Mhm.
It activates a different part in our brain so that we are more open to different ideas. We're open to experimenting. And so it just kind of sets the family in a tone that is more creative, more playful, less defensive.
Yeah. So, how do you handle a situation where you have well, maybe a second or third generation business where the founders are long since deceased, and didn't have your services at their disposal, but there's a lot of baggage that still exists from the founders weighing on the current owners, and how do you unpack all that and help them move that aside so that doesn't slow them down and they continue to grow their business. Have you come across those kind of situations?
That is a very good question. Yeah. I think, honestly, I would approach it differently for different families. I would think I would say, because it just depends on what the situation is and what the baggage is. Because
Sure.
if it is about structure, we can do that. If it just is a question of setting up a structure, that's pretty easy and that's pretty
Sure.
objective. If the baggage has a lot more to do with emotional, distress or trauma, then that's a different conversation. So
Right.
I would approach it situation by situation.
That makes a lot of sense. I can see it being very, very complicated, and there's probably no two situations the same.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah,
You see
yeah,
one family business, you see one family business.
yeah, exactly. I can relate. Interesting. Well, Amber, this has been fascinating. I know we got to get wrapping up here in just a couple minutes. So I want to make sure that we hit on all the most important topics that you want to share. Because I want our listeners to, well, the next thing I want to do is ask you how you'd like them to reach out to you. If one of our listeners does own or is part of a family business and they want to benefit from your knowledge, what's the best way for them to reach out to you to engage your services?
Yes, thank you. They can email me. It's Anbern, N like Nancy, Bern as in Nancy, at the Guarrine Group. And Guarrine is spelled G like George, Uarri, N like Nancy, E like Edward. So it's just Anbern at theguarrinegroup.com. You can also check out theguarrinegroup.com and click subscribe to our newsletter. And that's the best way to connect with us.
All right, great. And I will put that information in the show notes. It'll be on the screen for our viewers on YouTube and Rumble. So you'll be able to see how to correctly spell that and get direct in contact with Ann Byrne. And as I mentioned every episode, when you do reach out to Ann Byrne, make sure you tell her that you heard about her here first on I Got a Guy podcast.
Yes.
So great way to connect the dots. But I want to. So what other highlights do you want to touch on? Since we only have, like I said, we have a few minutes left before you need to run off to your next commitment. What other topics do you want to cover so that our listeners get a full picture of what you offer?
Yeah. So I probably will just leave the listeners with two things. First is the understanding that in a family business, you're dealing with the world of family and the world of business. And they have different goals, they have different playbook. And so just the understanding that you those are two different worlds, I think will help with the families deal with different things. Um, Second, I would say is it is important for families, even if you're not working with me, it is important for families to make sure that they make time for fun. Family fun is important. It's not only important for brain development of children, it's also important for neuroplasticities for grown-ups. So adults need to have fun as well. So family fun, if you can make that a priority once a week, go out and do something just as it makes you laugh.
Sure. That's a great advice. Frankly, that's good advice for every family, whether you own a family business or not.
Yes,
Frankly, I mean,
that's true.
everyone needs to dial back on the stress a little bit. And I have heard from many folks that laughter really is the best medicine.
Yes.
It changes things inside metaphysically, and you're a happy, healthier person if you can have a little bit of laughter in your fold some laughter into your life. So that's great news. This has been fascinating. I really appreciate you taking some time to share your story, and I hope that we can help some small businesses somewhere get an idea of uh, how to either become more successful and in hopes of transitioning to future generations. Do you work just in the Chicagoland area, or are you nationwide?
So I am actually currently in New York right now. So that gives you an idea. Yeah, as long as our schedules would work, we will work with any family anywhere.
And you obviously don't have to necessarily be always in person. You can meet up virtually via Zoom or Teams or some other electronic means as well, right? To have some meetings, so you could work.
Some of the meetings would, yes, yes, some of the meetings lend well to Zoom or Teams. But when we're talking about creating a constitution, I really need the family to be in the same space. So, yes,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the technology is great, but nothing replaces face-to-face personal
yes,
interaction,
yes, yes,
especially from your vantage point of having to kind of map out all the dynamics. There are some things that they get lost in the electronic communications. So, well, great. I'm glad you have the opportunity to help businesses around the country. We do have listeners from around the country. In fact, we have listeners around the world that download our podcast. So, we're thrilled to be able to share good information constantly with our listeners anywhere they are. hopefully somebody can benefit from it. And I know your information is going to benefit a lot of people. So thank you for
Oh, thank you
sharing.
for this. Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. You're doing really great work. Thanks.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So before we wrap up here, I want to ask for your contact information again in a second. I'm going to throw a quick little, just a little plug in for Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions, um, since we have our audience's attention right now. With Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions, we work with business owners that own commercial vehicles. We help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through using our GPS tracking technology. This has been a really important aspect for a lot of businesses. But right now, we are recording this show in the month of June, and June is National Safety Month, and it's really important. Business owners, you want your crews out in the field doing their work and completing the jobs, but as a business owner, it's your responsibility to keep them safe. Using our technology, you can help them be safe. We can monitor how they drive their vehicles, and you can coach them and counsel them to be safer, and a safer driver is better for your business. So, if you don't have eyes on the road, being through the use of dash cams, you probably should consider that. And I'd love to have a conversation with you. No obligation conversation. Let's talk about how dash cams might impact your business and help you put a safer field service group in the field, and helping them be safer. So reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. Our website is precisefleettracking.com, and our phone number is 847-865-6008. That's 847-865-6008, and our website is precisefleettracking.com. Thank you. And Amber, and let's have your information, get it one more time as well.
Yes, it's Anbern at theguarrinegroup.com. That's Guarrine and theguarrinegroup.com.
Very good. I will have that all information put it in the show notes and on the screen, and hopefully you get plenty of phone calls inquiring about your services. So
Oh, thank
again,
you.
Amber, again, thank you so much for being willing to spend some time with us today, sharing your story. And as I mentioned, the law of value makes a lot of sense. You offer an awful lot of value to small businesses everywhere, and we appreciate that. So I hope you have a great
Thank
rest of your
you.
time in New York. It looks like it's a very nice sunny day out there, and we
It
will
is.
be in touch very soon. And to our listeners, thank you again for listening, and we hope to come to you again very shortly with another episode of I Got a Guy podcast. So thank you all, and make it a great day. Take care. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. For past podcasts and more information, go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. Please share this podcast on your social media feeds and tune in again next week to I Got a Guy podcast.